Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed Shaheer and today I'm here to discuss the impact of supply chain disruptions on Apple Incorporation in China as a part of my integrated management research project. So let's just start with the introduction a bit and let's just start by acknowledging that the evolving nature of supply chain over time. Uh, Over time, they have basically grown onto the integrated international network by connecting manufacturers, suppliers, distributors, consumers across all the globe. However, the complexity has also made supply chains more liable for the various disruptions, starting from natural disasters to the geopolitical tensions. So, coming to the basic research objectives of my project, the objective of my research are crucial in understanding the significance of these disruptions. Supply chain interruptions can have far-reaching consequences on the business, economies, and the consumers. Given its prominence in the technology sector and significant presence in China, it's imperative to focus on Apple's experiences with supply chain disruptions in this vital market. So basically, our research has three main goals that all works towards a full examination of Apple Incorporation supply chain developments in China. In the beginning, our goal is to pinpoint the precise types of supply chain interruptions that have had an immediate effect on Apple Incorporation's operations in the Chinese market. Secondly, we want to evaluate how these disruptions have affected basically Apple's overall operations, output, and performances. And thirdly, we want to explore the complexities of Apple's supply chain and the risks and vulnerabilities in the Chinese settings and examine how these elements basically affect the formation of disruptive events. So now going on to the data collection, I've researched and read multiple journals, multiple articles, but out of them I've only added two or three over here. So the first one basically says and emphasizes on the Apple's dedication to sustainability as well as the plan to implement clean energy practices throughout its network of suppliers. Apple Incorporation uses its sellers clean energy program to reduce the risk and improve the supply chain resilience in response to potential supply chain interruptions. The organization encourages suppliers to use the renewable energy sources, which not only benefits the environment but also lessens the reliance on existing electricity grids that basically are prone to go outages as well. Uh, Coming towards the second research journal that I have mentioned over here, which is written by the Singh Bhatti, and Patel. So this study basically emphasizes how crucial supply chain resilience is, particularly in the face of extraordinary disruptions. It describes basically how COVID-19 outbreaks, the causes of significant disruptions, and had an impact on worldwide demand logistics in the industry. Uh, So a part of that, in depth of this, the analysis of Apple's reaction on the reaction and the tactics that illuminate the company's strategy for successfully, navigating the challenges. The author provide information about the Apple's method of risk analysis and mitigation. These tactics usually includes basically the contingency planning, supplier diversification, flexible manufacturing methods, and the technology utilization for basically, so this basically tells that the journal basically tells how Apple has been using all of these things to basically countering the problems and situations that they faced in the problems they face in their operations. Coming up to the third journal that I've mentioned over here, which is written by Gia and Rutherford. So this study, basically, this article emphasizes on the importance of cultural variations in the international corporate relationships. The study emphasized how different the cultural norms, communication style, and beliefs can unintentionally cause misinterpretation, disagreements, and disruptions in the supply chain partnerships. G and Rutherford clarified the importance of acknowledging these cultural differences, also offer perceptions onto how they could prevent productive collaborations and obstruct the exchange of goods and informations. The authors provide the insightful suggestions for reducing these hazards, including the methods to raise cultural sensitivity, enhance cross-cultural communications, and promote an inclusive environment. The article highlights basically the possibilities for enhanced supplier relationships, more efficient operations by promoting open communication and understanding them. Coming up to the analysis, the data analysis we have done through, we have basically used the primary, not the primary data analysis. We have done the secondary data research. So on the basis of previous researches, we were basically able to find the followings. I'll first basically explain the objective one, that was to investigate the primary reasons for Apple Incorporation's supply chain. To investigate the primary reasons for Apple Incorporation supply chain problem in China. So there are four themes to be based on. The number one is geopolitical factor, number two is supplier reliance, number three is logistics issue, and number four is labor challenges, which is very common and understandable by its own. The geopolitical factor, basically, it's the political dispute and trade tensions among the countries and people who, and the countries, having some personal grudges, due to which the operations and production has been affected. Supplier reliance, that clearly means that you're too much dependent on single supplier, so which is not actually good for a business. So that's the second one. That's the second problem that I feel like Apple was facing. The third one is logistics issues. Logistics issues means the clear delays and the insufficiencies of infrastructure, congestions, and all these things within China. So Apple had to think about it and work accordingly. And the theme number four is labor challenge, which is very common everywhere, not in China only, according in the world as well. So this is basically the labor challenge. It's basically depending upon the labor strikes, wage disputes, and the workforce, place and all these things. So they might have thing and they might have a second plan for that as well. The objective number two of my report was to survey the effect of these disturbances on Apple's task creation, execution, and in the Chinese market. So again, the basic problem is being highlighted in the form of themes. There are four themes again in this slide as well. Number one is production delays. Number two is inventory management. Number three is consumer satisfaction. Number four is financial performance. The theme number one, that basically clearly says that the delay in product is caused by the component shortages, which is because of probably the geopolitical problems, the logistics problem, or anything. Theme number two is basically inventory management. Again, if there's a delay in reaching of inventory to the product to the workplace, so eventually there will definitely be a problem for the inventory management team as well, and the product might not be available when needed, which causes a delay in the production. Number three is consumer satisfaction. It's basically, again, all of these things are completely dependent upon the distribution cycle, like sourcing distribution of products by the suppliers. So if you're having limited suppliers, you get limited suppliers, which means that you have to listen their problems and they will do what they want. But if you got the problem, if you got multiple suppliers, so you won't be facing all these things. And eventually the consumer satisfaction is the most important part for Apple as a company, is because Apple is a brand which focuses on the customer satisfaction, and the people who use Apple, they're very brand loyal. But if Apple fails to deliver what the consumer want, so eventually they'll lose the brand loyalty as well. The fourth and the final one for this slide is the financial performance, which is self-explanatory as well. If you got limited suppliers, limited logistics, so eventually, if they want to increase the prices, they will, and you have to pay them more prices for the same product, which will be resulting in lowering your own profit. So as a company in whole, it's not good for the company. Coming up to the objective number three, that is basically to break down the vulnerabilities and the risk in Apple supply chain in China, and that adds the disturbances. So again, I got through four themes again over here to explain it. Supply dependency, number one, geopolitical factor, logistical challenge, and technological dependency. Supply dependency, as explained earlier, if you have limited suppliers, so you'll have to wait for them to arrange the products. And even if they increase the prices, you have to pay them more for the same products that are available in cheaper rates. Geopolitical factor, it completely depends upon the countries and the relationship of suppliers and the companies and the countries. So this has a significant role in that as well. And number three, logistical challenge. If we talk about the COVID-19, so at that time, China was the very first country which was hit by the COVID. So in that case, they were the very first ones to have their ports blocked and all these things. So they might have an alternate plan. In that case, they might have an alternate plan. How do they work and how to manage things? Number four, technological dependency is very common. You might have they might be having some good softwares which might be analyzed by supply chain specialists, but they need to upgrade them so that they have some future foreseeings and a better warehouse and stock as well. So basically, coming up to the reflection of thematic analysis, alignment of objective, the thematic analysis was successful in applying and identifying the main cause of Apple's supply chain disruptions. That was clearly mentioned, the logistics and the supplier dependency. It was the major problem. Uh, we basically use the qualitative method of research and the secondary research as well. It's because qualitative method might not allow us to get this depth of the thing, and they might and if you go for the quantitative method, so that would be a bit complex. It's because in the secondary research it's difficult to find out numbers and all these things. So basically now I'd like to come up to the recommendations and restrictions. So these are all these things you can easily see, not a big deal in that. Coming up to the conclusions from the findings. In conclusion, the Apple Incorporation supply chain disruption in China have had substantial impacts on its operations, manufacturing, and the overall performance in the Chinese market. Addressing these challenges require strategies to diversify suppliers, enhance logistical flexibility, and invest in the robust of technology infrastructure that was already mentioned in the previous slides as well. So basically now coming up to the recommendations, like what I would like to recommend on the basis of research, what I have done already. So the first recommendation is for the supply chain managers working over there. The first suggestion is to diversify the supplier base, as mentioned earlier, stands out basically as an important strategy for the supply chain management to reduce the risk brought by an excessive reliance on the small number of important suppliers. These experts can efficiently transfer the risk by expanding their suppliers network, guaranteeing which will be guaranteeing a more resilient supply chain even in the face of disruptions. Is because when you got more suppliers, everyone wants a business and they will eventually give out the results if they want to earn money themselves as well. This advice can be used as a proactive strategy by the supply chain managers to protect the business continuity and lessens the negative effects of supply network disruptions. The second suggestion would be for the policymakers. On the other hand side, are basically the policymakers play a crucial role in creating atmosphere and supports the reliable supply chain operations. In the second suggestion, which emphasizes the regular geopolitical and political status monitoring, fits quite well in the duties. Policymakers may establish solid frameworks that help the companies like Apple and Corporation navigating the risk more successfully by keeping an eye on trade conflicts, regularity changes, and the political events happening around the world. This recommendation, proactive this recommendation's proactive risk reduction strategy can promote, more seamless, I believe, more seamless international trade and economic sustainability for the company. So now for the company, the Apple company as a whole, these suggestions offer practical ways. These suggestions offer practical ways for Apple Incorporation, the subject of the study, to improve reliability of its supply chain in the Chinese market. The company's dedication to maintaining its constant product availability, regardless of the disruption, is a consistent consistent with it's basically consistent with the strategy of diversifying its supply base. Additionally, Apple Incorporation is able to make decisions that protect the business operation and reputation by routinely watching the geopolitical developments. These suggestions can help the business improve its supply chain and reduce risk and keep providing the value to its clients as well. So the future research direction. So basically, I feel like if someone wants to continue the research, so they can do it, and they can basically examine the supply chain tactic across industries, and they can use the comparative analysis for finding a better solution, for best solution, and for minimizing the interruptions during the unpredictable geopolitical and economical times. Reflections and lessons learned by this research, what we have learned. Better research, I feel like better research would have been obtained by taking more proactive approach to finding particular and appropriate resources, spending more time on locating the credible books, studies, articles that address each research goal specifically would have been given an analysis in conclusion, in which concludes a stronger basis. This stage would have been this stage, I believe that would have made sure that the analysis data were more closely related to the study's primary result. The use of combination of qualitative and the quantitative data collection techniques is another area where the results would have been improved, I believe, despite the research heavily reliance on the secondary data sources. Using primary data gathering and techniques such as expert interviews and surveys would have provided a more better comprehensive understanding of the supply chain disruptions and their effects as well. So that's what I feel like that I have learned, and the reflection of my whole research. Coming up to the Gantt chart, as you can see, what we have planned initially was something like this. And now if we compare the initial expectations with the final thoughts on the Gantt, so expectations were the initial Gantt chart was carefully prepared with the time frames allotted for each of the study phase, including the literature evaluation, data collection, analysis, and presentation. Assumption was like my chosen research topic could have been thoroughly investigated within the allotted period. The reality check for this was that the study process showed that more time was needed for throughout data gathering, analysis, and this synthesis due to the topic's complexity, as it's basically not a very easy topic to work on. And the overall experience was good enough, and I feel like that these are some things that we need to keep in mind for any of the future researches as well. So here are some of the bibliographies, and that's all. Thank you.